Welcome to Read Your Comics. Today I am looking at Marvel's new universe, Spitfire. This is my second video I've done on New Universe books. I started a little binge read after a friend of mine on Instagram, Big Daddy John Ross, hooked me up with the first 5 to 6 issues of all the series. He had posted a reel of them, and I just made a vague comment about how I'd always kind of wanted to check them out, so he just sent me a set, and I really appreciate it, and I'm kind of slow to reading them and getting them done, but John, I am reading them, I am enjoying them, and I really appreciate you hooking me up, giving me the chance to expose myself to this new universe. This one does have the first 6 issues. I'm just going to kind of go through it real quick because, honestly, single issues of this new universe they are semi-self-contained because they were overseen by Jim Shooter, and that was a big thing for him. If you're not familiar with the new universe, in 1980, really it kind of started around 1984. Jim Shooter wanted to have an answer to Crisis on Infinite Earths. He said in a deposition, if you watch Cartoonist Kayfabe, they bring it up a lot, that he says it was the answer to The Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen, but I think it was really an answer to Crisis on Infinite Earths, because that was DC's opportunity to reboot their universe and kind of start with a clean slate. And after a little over 20 years, or about 25 years at this point, I guess he felt like Marvel needed a clean slate too. But his big idea was end the Marvel universe, like end it, and start off with this new universe. The IP of Spider-Man and X-Men was so big, by that point, and the Hulk had a TV show and so forth and so on. Like that wasn't going to fly with the people that own Marvel. So eventually he was able to do like a side universe. And even it went through a lot of like editorial changes before it finally launched. Some might even say it was doomed to fail, like it was set up not to succeed. Funding was cut pretty heavily for it, but they did put some, pretty quality creators on it, if not maybe their best creators of this time period. And I say that because as we jump into Spitfire and the Troubleshooters, that's the name of the title, it is Spitfire and the Troubleshooters. As we jump into this first issue, our writer and artist team is Jerry Conway and Herb Trimpe, 2 longtime veterans of the comic industry. Probably Trimpe, I don't want to say past his prime, but probably past the height of his popularity of the 70s. I guess this was an assignment. He needed to work. He's going to take this book. Just to jump back out real quick, my first impressions of this cover is I'm looking at like more or less a mech suit. So I'm thinking, oh, this is like the new universe Iron Man. That is my first impression just looking at this cover. This looks kind of cool, like the initial look right here. As we go on and we really start looking at this mech suit, my opinion of that is going to change a little bit as we go along. I think it is kind of bland just being a solid red color. Even Marvel figured that out early on with Iron Man, that like first he was just a gray tin color, quickly he turned to gold, and then that splash of red I think is really what makes Iron Man work. I mean, he even says it in the movie, throw a little hot rod red on there. But it's the red and the gold together. This solid red is just, it's kind of bleh. It's kind of, it's too solid, But we're going to jump in and see how the new universe Iron Man holds up. It starts off with, we have a scientist. He's kind of begging for his life and also saying they'll never find the work he was working on, that it was too important to just let them have control. You see this other mechanical kind of hand and leg, and he gets crushed. He sets off a machine to fight back against the thing, but ultimately he ends up getting killed. And what we see, this robotic looking thing walks off with his safe, presumably his secrets. Cut to this group, and we learn that these are going to be what's known as the Troubleshooters. I think they even already call themselves that. They are like some top performing students at MIT. And here they're building some kind of like tractor hot rod thing. They're putting it together in the dean's office as a joke. Their teacher here, her name is Jenny, she catches them doing it and, is like, this might be taking your little jokes too far. She's not really mad at them, but she's kind of like, if you guys get caught, you're going to get in big trouble. But you know what? There's some people coming. I'll run interference for you while you guys get out of here, and we'll just pretend that I didn't see you. So they start sneaking out, and they sneak out on the side of the building. This is like something out of like an 80s, college movie of like a frat prank or something. I mean, it's straight out of something like that. And the people that were coming around the hall actually are police officers, and they're here to tell the teacher, whose name is Jenny, that her father has been killed. And her father is the scientist at the beginning of the book. 2 days later, we're going to get a funeral, and she is, I think, met up at the funeral. That, like, you have basically until tomorrow to clear out your dad's stuff. He was living in this house that was attached to the lab, but that's all property of the company he was working for. And the company he was working for, it was kind of like he made a deal with the devil. He was working on something that he thought was going to be like a benefit to mankind, but just to get the funding, he, took a job with a company that wanted to do military arms and stuff. So he kind of was doing like 2 projects. He's kind of doing a not as quality project that he was handing over to the company, and then he had his own like real project he was working on. She goes to the lab, and while she's trying to do it, and they're basically timing her, like, look, you have 5 minutes. So she's trying to get into the dad's computer. She figures out his password is Spitfire, which was her nickname as a little kid. And she gets this information. She more or less just has to memorize it real quick and walk out the door. Then you get some stuff about where she trains as a martial artist. That's more to just let you know that she is a trained and capable fighter, or like for self-defense. We get some more stuff with the troubleshooters. And I don't think, she asked for help. She might ask them for help. She's there to explain kind of, she wants to get her dad's stuff back, and that it definitely is going to be breaking and entering and stealing something. And I think she wants them to just more or less be a distraction so that she can get in there herself. And they're happy to help. They really like her as a teacher. As we go along, this guy, Giotti, you're going to see that maybe he has a crush on her, and she has a crush on him, and that's going to lead to some tension throughout the whole thing as we go along. They put on their black clothes, so they try to make it as realistic as possible, because that was one of the key drivers of the new universe. It was supposed to be even more grounded. The original Marvel universe was supposed to be the world outside your window with superheroes, and that's what this was, with like an 80s bent to it, meaning it needed to be just a smidgen more realistic. So we don't really get a lot of costuming in this. We get, just black turtleneck shirts with white pants. So fortunately they all had that on hand to match each other when they go to break into this place. And she uses the information she got out of the computer to find the secret mech suit, which is called like the Max. Meet Max, Man Amplified Experiment, Dad's Life Work. This was meant to be more or less a human augmenting machine for like construction and mining and things of that nature, not a military weapon. But, it's a heavy duty weapon. It'd be like taking a forklift out on a battlefield. You're going to do some damage with one. She finds it, but where she goes by Spitfire, we start calling the thing Spitfire, or the Max suit. And then it turns out this lab is a mobile lab, and then there's 3 trucks attached to the walls to this lab, open up, and 3 trucks pull away. Then the other mech suit, this is the one that the dad had been working on, that's, more or less a prototype of the other one that we just saw. This one doesn't work quite as well. It's the one that they gave this Croats guy and this other like lackey he has working for him. So they send somebody out in that suit to stop the trucks, which forces her to get into the Mac suit, and it looks a lot bigger right there. I want to point out something about Herb Trimpe on this book. I feel like he draws more realistic in this than he did when he drew in the Hulk. And I'm sure it's a skill he always had, but, drawing for the Hulk is just a different thing. But, like, panels like this, like that face is just very realistic looking to me. This isn't so great, but, like, the people and the situations and stuff, like his face there, this stuff, he's almost like a little older Peter Parker looking, but it just looks different to me than what I saw in the Hulk. And Joe Sennett is the inker, and Sennett's not inking it like, to look like Kirby. I don't know. The art is a little different. If you had just shown me this, I probably would not have guessed this is Herb Trimpe. So, forces her to get in the Mac suit to go out, and it's got these, like, they aren't weapons, they're really like tools for things that she starts using to, I think here she might just be testing it, actually. They drove to some quarry where I guess they could do it like, be away from the eyes. Maybe it was an old quarry that's been abandoned. And here comes the other Mac suit in. As she's about to get out, here comes the other one to attack him, and they fight. She's sweating because, she doesn't really know how to use it. She just gets into it, and it's a little intuitive. Here's something that bugs me about the suit. It has no feet. It walks on rocket legs. It's not like a foot. And while that might actually work for a robot, even like, it just seems like it would topple over. But even if you didn't design it like a straight up human style foot, just a circle like standing on the bottom of a rocket, it just looks weird to me. So they fight. The Mac suit prevails. And that's the start of the series. They run off in their 3 different numbered trucks. Kind of silly, kind of like a toy line ready to go right there. This first issue is okay. The only thing I did not like about this issue is it's so dialogue heavy. When I remember reading it, and it's like it almost took me 2 days to read it, because I read these a lot of times late at night in bed, and it would just kind of make me nod off a little bit. So jump into number 2. And here's where my complaints about the new universe in general that I've discovered so far is the covers are boring. They're boring. This is a boring cover, and it should be cool. You got this like black tank that you can't really make out. It's so black, you've got to look close to see these like little, the little like lines. I think it's almost supposed to be like a stealth tank, or they call it the death tank, fighting the boring looking red robot mech suit. Still Herb Trimpe. This time we're going to have Bob McLeod inking, though. And you can already see the difference in it. They're out, just testing the Mac suit, building some stuff, some characterization up between the troubleshooters. And the whole time she's like also thinking, like, what am I doing getting these kids into this mess? Some rednecks run off the road, and she takes the Mac suit to go rescue them. And when she gets back, the one guy's like, don't you think that was a little risky exposing us? She's like, she can go tell them. Nobody will believe them. And let's see. Okay, somebody at the White House, I think, is asking them what their the Croats, the company that she stole it from, what's happening to the suit and stuff. And he's like, he's feeling the pressure that he has to do something to get it back. Meanwhile, the troubleshooters are using the technology from the Mac suit to build their own things, like these amplified arms that can, crush a granite ball, or is it a bowling ball? It's a ball bearing, so it is like a metal ball, and he can crush it, building that stuff up. Okay, this is the Croats guy. He's like the head of the company. He's the one that had the dad killed. This is his lackey that's working for him, and he sends the lackey, says, take the other the death tank, which I think they call it the behemoth, to go get him. And see, this is not Herb Trimpe to me. Like, I look at this and I don't see Herb Trimpe in any of this. I think he really did try to, you know, crank it up a notch of his realism for this series. I don't remember exactly what they're doing here. They're breaking into somewhere again. I think they're going back to Krotz's place just to spy on him. And this is the tank on like a train, and here comes the tank. And it looks more or less just like a normal tank, but all black. It looks like something like Cobra would. Actually, it doesn't even look like a Cobra tank, because Cobra had cool looking bad guy weaponry. This just looks like a black regular tank. So they come after her. Pretty good shot right there of her in the crosshairs. She gets away pretty quick though. And the tank is actually like almost like a drone. It's being piloted by that lackey guy, but he's not actually in it. He's near though. I think he's on that train. Like I think this train is like a command car. So he's controlling it via remote. And the one guy got caught. The guy that had the arm things, the guitar, there he is controlling it. It's so goofy looking. And he's sweating it out. He doesn't really want to be doing it. His thing is like, I'm not wanting to kill this girl. Like, but I'm too in deep with this. I can't back out now. And this suit holds up well against the tank. All right. Keep in mind that this suit in issue number 2 is holding its own, getting shot by a tank. It's ripping off parts of the tank. It's blasting it with like a blowtorch. The tank is on a wire, so it's not even remote controlled. There's just a wire. It's just controlled by a wire. The other troubleshooters come to rescue the guy that got caught. And she bends up the thing. One thing about this suit I've noticed, especially looking back through it again, it grows and shrinks to whatever size the panel it needs it to be. Sometimes she has to climb way up in it. Yeah, I guess it's that height a lot of times. Anyway, she ends up like throwing the tank down. And at this point, she's really thinking like, well, we're getting in too deep. The one guy even got hurt. And this can't go on. Like, and she's like, I'm putting these kids in danger, and I don't need to be doing that. So there's a lot of conflict there, inner turmoil going on. Jump into number 3. Again, tell me if this cover is exciting. I just don't see excitement in this cover. And it could be. There are things about it that could be, but a lot of it's this big red robot holding, you know, just like, that almost looks like a caulk gun, but with like a cord attached to it. I mean, there's nothing about that, you know, looks dynamic or exciting. Look at these weird feet, just how straight it is. It's just, again, where's the dynamic, exciting visuals? Like, it's almost like they didn't say like, hey, you remember that book, How to Draw the Marvel Way, with John Buscema, and he talks about how to pose things and stuff. It's almost like they're like, don't do that. Don't do it that way. But we got Ron Wagner on pencils on this issue. Danny Bulanati. Unfamiliar with him as inker. Danny Bulanati. Unfamiliar with him as inker. I don't even remember what happened in this particular issue. I remember the tank issue. I think she goes in to confront the Krotz guy because she wants to end it. Then we got this detective who's been investigating some of the stuff with her dad, but, you know, they've pretty much ruled it an accident at this point. But that detective is kind of feeling like there's more to it than that. I feel like the art takes a step back on this one. Definitely this guy looks a little different. You can tell Trimpe did a good job illustrating that first couple issues. I forget who this guy is, but this is the Krotz. This isn't the lackey guy that was running his tank, I don't think. Yeah, I don't remember who this guy was. He's somebody, though, that he was involved with the tank or something. Because, yeah, I think this is the little Weasley guy that was operating the tank. Anyway, he takes him into this experiment room or whatever, pushes a button. It says the lights flicker and dim as like an energy thing goes off that kills him. And Croats is like, there's something to do with blackmail, like, because he was failing him, and Croats had to basically have like a fall guy. Because he starts mentioning there's somebody above Croats that he's even concerned about, that Jenny and the troubleshooters don't know about yet. It cuts back to them, and they're still using this tech to make more stuff. Like, now he's got like these leg things that can make him run real fast. She's working on some kind of device that lets her tap into computers with like just her brain, more or less. So they're using this Max tech to do other stuff. And again, one of the problems I have with reading these is so much of this. And I like to read. I like words. I do. But sometimes it's like, okay, I get it. You're conflicted about having these kids working with you and helping you and stuff. I get it. I do. But we're going to hammer it home. Not just like one time in the issue, but like multiple times. So I think she goes back to confront Croats in this issue. And she's wanting to go alone. She doesn't really want the kids helping her. Oh, she was going to get a disc that was going to give information. That's right. There was some kind of disc that was going to prove that they killed her father. And so she was going to go in and go it alone. And she goes in, and this military guy, and she shoots the military guy. And that's a pretty interesting moment when she shoots the military guy in the shoulder and immediately is like, what am I doing? I am a teacher at MIT. I'm not, coming to gun people down. So she's like, oh no, I'm so sorry. That's a pretty interesting shot. I mean, that one kind of makes it look cool, right? But you got like one pretty cool panel in this whole issue. I mean, look at this panel. Look at that panel compared to the cover. Just how plain this is drawn. Even compared to this. It's still a plain looking design. This just looks cooler with the guns shooting straight at it and the fire coming off of it. Just not exciting. She's making her escape. She's on her way out. The Croats guy has some kind of thing that like shocks it and kind of makes it immobile. So at this point, we're 3 issues in, and this is like the first real stress that this thing has been put under, showing a vulnerability. But the troubleshooter, who she said to not be there because they could get hurt or killed or worse, the one that just made his fast running things, exoskeleton, shows up to save her, and he does. He's able to like block out the like thing that was incapacitating the Max suit, and gives her enough time to recover to, shoot some foam, and they're able to fly off. She uses the rockets to fly off. And that's the end until we see Croats goes home, and he's met by this sinister looking dude in his living room. And they mention something about the club. There's some kind of secret, organization, the deep state, if you will. And he's part of it, like a hitman or assassin for it. And he's come because Croats is in trouble because he let this Max suit escape. Look at this ad. That makes the new universe look a little cooler than it is. Even though in my Star Brand video, I pretty much blast this terrible costume design. I'm pretty much blasting this design. We'll see how it goes as I keep reading these books. At this point, though, 3 issues in, and I'm somewhat invested in the characters. I kind of want to know what's going on with them, but I'm not in love with it. I think I read this one, and then I took a long break before I jumped into the 4th one. Even though the 4th one, with this, again, kind of, this is a little bit better cover. But the fourth one on the inside is none other than Mr. Todd McFarlane. McFarlane. Shows you how much clout Todd had at this point that he didn't even they didn't even spell his name correctly. So Jerry Conway's still doing the art. We got Todd McFarlane doing pencils and Bob McLeod doing inking. And Bob McLeod would actually do a lot of the inking and covers and stuff during McFarlane's Hulk run. This came out about 4 months or so before his Hulk run would start. So he was definitely finishing up his DC work. It would be interesting to ask him like where this fell in, like how did they put him on this and then move him over to Hulk so soon? I mean, it may have just been to pull him away from DC. They're like, well, we got to get him on an ongoing title. Anyway, this issue, the art is more dynamic. I mean, it's McFarlane. And you can see the McFarlaneisms already different. We've got these vertical, like small, skinny vertical panels. Lots of them. You kind of see this even as like a McFarlane panel with like the small vertical panel with just, like a quarter of the face hidden in the shadows there. I mean, you see the McFarlaneisms. McFarlane doing his best to make this terrible mech suit design look good with its stupid rocket feet. But it looks pretty good here. This panel even looks pretty good. You've got like a nice, close-up shot. In this one, she is going to turn herself in, sort of. She's already like contacted like a senator. She's showing up for a Senate hearing who's wanting to have a big show of it and have him walk in. It's like Baymax from Big Hero 6, the Disney version, is what this is like. But I mean, even there, it looks more interesting. It's bulkier, although it doesn't even look like the rocket feet there. It looks like it's like balls on its feet. Like maybe it rolls instead of walks, but it bends its legs and walks. I don't know. Going in there with the senator. Cool laser tag ad. I mean, this is a McFarlaneism. Like cramming all these people together. Not just McFarlane, but like, like John Byrne would even do stuff like this. It's like you need all the characters in there. Cram them in together where they don't really fit together. Like people don't sit that close to each other. But you want them in there and it makes the panel interesting. The problem with these new universe books is they want it to be so realistic. I should have pointed out, too, these are supposed to be somewhat real-time. So a lot of times in this dialogue and stuff, they mention about like a month passing or a few weeks passing each issue. Like at the beginning, I don't want to go back, but at the beginning, I think they mentioned there was some time passed between the third issue and this one where she obviously made contact with this senator, because we haven't really even seen the senator in the book until this point. Now this is the police officer, the detective again. And they're talking about, I think Croats is missing now. Croats is missing, and he's been missing for a few weeks. And that's what they're investigating. Here's our sinister-looking dude from the last one. Look at all these, like, guns he's got, and the sword. I mean, he's got guns just, like, laying around the TV and grenades. And he's watching the news. He's watching this big Senate hearing go down. Here's the senator making a big show. And again, this is one of the most... This is one of the most dynamic panels we've seen in the book so far, in the 4 issues. Here's the guy she shot, and she's like apologizing, like, I'm sorry, I didn't, like, I hated doing that. I didn't really mean to shoot you. I hope you're okay. And he's just like, yeah, I guess. He's like in shock seeing it again. And then she hops out with the disc that she stole that will, prove that Croats murdered her father and that he's... Oh, and she says something about the club. She got something about the club that, she doesn't know anything about it. She's like, there's something called the club. And so the guy's watching it on TV. Here's where we're getting more, too, about, like, this girl, showing that she has a crush on him, even though he obviously has a crush on her and will do anything for her. And she's almost like the jealousy of it's coming to the forefront. She's not outwardly saying it, but she's definitely thinking it a lot, like... She's putting us in danger. That's a McFarlane panel. So So he's watching TV and he's like, and she says something about how like she would kill Croats. I mean, she's kind of speaking hypothetically, and in hyperbole, saying that she would love to. What is this? She says, Croats who stole the fruits of my father's labors as surely as if he had robbed him at gunpoint. Let's see, the Max experiment, blah, 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 blah. So it's been about 2 weeks. She says here it's been about 2 weeks since he's reared his head. And somewhere along here, she mentions, if I did, I'd have been tempted to take care of Croats myself with my bare hands. And that's what she says. She's like, here's the disc that's going to prove the club thing. And this guy hears, and he's like, oh, good. Let me get this metal bar out. And here comes Croats. I mean, look at this shot, too. We've got a Dutch angle happening. Now the title's getting interesting with this new artist, Todd McFarlane, on here. This panel is great. I mean, both of these panels. And then even this one. So he beats him to death with a metal bar. Moving ahead, I don't know if like a day has passed or 2 days are passed. Now they're having like some big party with like the senator and stuff, putting it on, and she's in the dress, and this guy's going to get her now. And well, actually, first let's see, did I skip a page? Yep. Oh no, I didn't. It's right there. I just didn't look at it. He takes the body and throws it in the river, and he mentions about how long it's going to take for it to turn back up. So he's not really trying to completely dispose of the body. He wants it to be found. The senator wants her to get in the Max suit and do a demonstration. Again, we have one of the more interesting panels of the whole series so far. And she discovers a bomb. She flies it up, throws it in the sky where it can blow up. Or no, she tears it apart so it doesn't blow up. And then he comes out with this like crazy looking gun and immediately shoots her. This thing took a shell from a tank, but now this gun is going to make its arm blow off. And this part is weird. Like, this is drawn weird. Like, her arm is coming here. Where is her? If her arm is coming over here, you know, and her elbow is like here, her shoulder must be about here, which would make her head about, or even like here. I mean, but that would put her head about here. How is she controlling this other arm? That's kind of goofy. That's goofy. If you're going to do that, it'd almost be better if she just like sits down in the chest of this thing and isn't like controlling the arms like with her arms, that she's controlling them like from like, you know, some control system inside the chest of this thing. Anyway, this dude destroys it. We're 4 issues in, and the Iron Man suit is just being shot to pieces and destroyed. This is very McFarlane-y. That grin. And then you hear him yelling, and with the one good arm, she like grabs his leg and crushes it. Which, you know, kind of saves her for a second, but then he comes back around and he's going to shoot her, and he's out of bullets. So he's going to go ahead and throw a grenade, but when the cops show up, instead, he throws the grenade at them so that he can make his escape, and he's using his gun like a crutch to get to his Jeep and escape. And after all that, the detective, who's been in a few issues so far, shows up, and now he's there to arrest her because Croats' body has resurfaced, and they can already tell that he's been crushed by some metal bar of some sort or something metal, and she was on national television saying that she would have choked him with her bare hands if she had the chance. And so that's a good cliffhanger, right? So now you're like, what is going on now? Issue number 5, and we're getting a crossover with Starbrand. This is actually kind of the second crossover for Starbrand and Spitfire. I don't remember what issue number it was. I think it was just the second or third issue of, might have just been the second, of Starbrand when it was kind of an interesting dilemma. He's very secretive of his powers because he doesn't quite know what to do with them, and he doesn't know what will be done to him by the government or the powers that be if he comes forward with his powers. And there's an issue in his own series where he's debating on whether or not to use his powers to go rescue some little girl that fell in a well, and he's there, like kind of on the outskirts of it, thinking about doing it, when all of a sudden the Spitfire robot comes in and does it. And then he follows the Spitfire robot back to there when they had the mobile lab, kind of confronts them and tells them that they need to watch out and be careful. So this takes place well after that, though. This isn't their first encounter. So here's what's left of the Spitfire, or the Max suit in, I guess this is like a storage facility, like an evidence room, and they're just like peering down in it, some of the troubleshooters there. And let's see, I think Herb Trimpe's back. Yep, Herb Trimpe's back. So after 2 issues off, Herb Trimpe comes back, and now Roy Thomas is also joined for Jerry Conway to help with the scripting. So they break into the storage locker, and they go in, and the one guy, which you get more background on him too, but whatever. He goes in and he does some stuff, try to fix it, but they don't take it back at this point, and that's not even clear at this point. She's in jail. We got her in jail. Her ex-boyfriend, who she mentioned in a previous issue that was a lawyer, is there to help her, but he's really not a criminal lawyer. He's like a corporate lawyer. And she's all distraught, pretty depressed. Starbrand sees her on the news. Well, he's at like a convenience store here, and they just to establish who he is, he stops these guys from just being loud and obnoxious, and they come to get him, and somehow he breaks it, or maybe they poked or hit him with it. And he's like, because he has like, it's almost like an instinctive force field around him. Anyway, he runs them off. And he's thinking about seeing Jenny in the news and what if he should do anything about it, if he could like reach out to her or whatever. Meanwhile, the detective comes to visit this girl, and again, look how much realism we're getting out of Trimpe on this. And I do like, I'm a big Herb Trimpe fan, especially his Hulk run, and this is good, it's solid, but we just got off that McFarlane issue that actually made this series kind of fun for an issue, and we're back to this very standard, type of storytelling again. It's interesting here because the police are asking her about Jenny, and she's like, maybe she did kill Croats. I really don't know. Like, we don't know her that well. She's our teacher, more or less. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, we were hoping you could say something that might help clear her, but so why this detective is trying to clear her, that remained to be seen. Here's the bad guy again. He's out, rehabilitating his leg. That tells you how long it's been. I think they said it's been like 6 weeks or so. Some guy from the club shows up. He shows off that his leg is still working fine. We get a courtroom scene, and they throw her a note saying, we're going to get Spitfire tonight. And she's like, oh no, they cannot do this. I hope that they don't do it. And she's worried about this officer seeing her, so she eats the note. Some jailhouse romance going on, forced romance. So he does show up. He shows up to talk to her. It's kind of weird where they're acting like they know each other. Anyway, and he's like, you should have listened to me. You should have laid low. And she's like, you're right. It's too late now. I've made my bed. I'm here to lie in it, but I am worried about those kids. They need to stop doing stuff. They need to not be trying to help me because they're going to get themselves in trouble at this point, and I don't want that. They go back to the storage place. I guess before they were just doing some repairs to get it back up online. And she knows that if they try to get it online, that like the power core on it or something was volatile, and that if they try to power it up, it's not going to end well. And there it is, getting heated up. They start coming out of the storage place, the evidence room. I mean, look at that panel. I mean, that is drawn so well. But It's just the series in general. He shows up outside of her jail cell at night because, he couldn't really talk freely at the being monitored by the prison people. And he's like, okay, I'm going to help your friends. I'm going to go and stop them from doing that. When she tells him what they're up to. So he goes, and then he's got his running legs now on a bike. So I guess that makes him ride it faster. And they're going to have a kind of a fight. Sort of a fight. It's like really him just trying to subdue the mech suit, but then he's like getting hot, I think, from the thing heating up, and it's making him not think very clearly. So he takes him up into the sky, and eventually he essentially just has to destroy the suit. He has to destroy the suit, get the battery pack thing off of it, and throw it up into the sky so it'll explode. Which it does, and I guess she sees the explosion in the sky and knows that everything's okay, so she sleeps soundly for the next day. And he basically gives them a lecture that they need to stop. And she, he goes back to tell her that everything's okay. This ad is more interesting than most of the books so far. This looks more interesting than the Starbrand series looks. I've never read this. By Bill Mummy? I've seen those in dollar bins. I should pick some up. All right, last issue that I have, Spitfire number 6. The mech suit is done, at least in this issue. And now it's still called Spitfire and the Troubleshooters. I guess the Spitfire is just the girl. So he's out there training, and they don't really want him to go back after the girl. She's taken the fall for Croats as it is, so that's not a big deal. But what they do want him to do is the club wants him to assassinate the Prime Minister of England. Who's doing the art on this one? Vince Giorano. So Trimpy just back for one. And now Carrie Bates is helping Jerry Conway on this one. So this is all over the place. It's almost like they can't really find a good, solid voice. It's like the Croats character was going to be the main bad guy, but, they killed him off. And now we got this guy, which I think his name is Blackhawk. I can't remember. They call him by his real name, and he keeps... Yeah, Steelhawk. He's like, call me Steelhawk every time that they say his real name. Now it's wintertime, which this was a March cover date. So, yeah, that would have been coming out like in January. Their court case. And she has a change of heart already. She's like, nope, Jenny is right. I do like her after all. I think she tries to tell that Giotti guy. She gets out on a technicality of some sort. She gets out. They're taking her home. Yeah, this was kind of a dull issue because it was hard to figure out where they were going now. And she decides to help him do some stuff anyway. So why does he have this? So now they're using this Max Tech stuff. I think they were worried about the club. So she even kind of becomes like the leader of them in a way, and it's like, we need to do this because we're learning about this club thing, and we don't know who they're going to come after next. And we've got this tech that we can do this other stuff. She uses her computer mind melding thing, which is pretty advanced for the time. She has long hair when she goes into the virtual world. I don't really have much to add to this one. She comes back and it's kind of like, you need to stop. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. But they learn that the Prime Minister is going to be assassinated and that the Steelhawk guy is out there. And so they decide to go stop that. I guess this is his little farm thing. Look at that. I think they're trying to figure out who killed Croats. That's Croats' blood on the wall. And Here's where the Prime Minister is going to be assassinated. I don't know what happens. When I was at the comic shop the other day, I did see number 6, 7, and 8 available. I don't really have a plan to get those anytime soon. I've still got more of this new universe to keep reading. You know, when it's all said and done, the number 4, the McFarlane issue, it did have a lot to do with McFarlane, made it more interesting. And they do a pretty good job of character development in this book. It's very heavy on the character development, but it's uneven. I mean, like I said, I read these first 3 issues, and then it was probably a couple months went by before I read the next 3 issues. So the tone changes quite a bit between them, which is kind of indicative of what I know about the new universe and how it was structured, how funding fell through, and how there was not much of a push after the initial launch. There was not much of a push to keep these books alive. A lot of them were on life support, probably by the 6th issue, which is probably why we're seeing different scripters come on. Artists are changing every few issues. Herb Trimpe does a really good job on these, 4 issues, 4 of these 6 that he did. Or no, he only did 3 because he didn't do number 3 here either. I do like his art in it. The most dynamic one is definitely the McFarlane. And if it had more art like the McFarlane, or if they'd let Trimpe do what he did in Hulk, this would be a lot more interesting. But these designs, even these, you got this like mech legs, mech arms. Now, what is this guy doing? Other than that, they're wearing black turtlenecks and blue jeans. Come on. That's all I got for this one. I'll be back with another one. I think the next one I pulled out is Kickers Inc. is the next one I'm reading currently, so that'll be, when I get back to the New Universe videos, that'll be the next one I do. Until then, read your comics.